Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sarah and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I would so appreciate it if you like and subscribe to this video for more videos about solo travel, backpacking, healthy eating, a million different things, whatever I'm doing. So today's video is one I wish I would have found before I went to Colombia. I went on a solo backpacking trip for 1 month all the way around Colombia to Cartagena, Santa Marta, Medellin, Bogota, and a million cities in between. And I wish I would have had a video that would give me just a few tips for solo backpackers and especially female solo backpackers. So today I'm going to give you 10 easy tips to make your trip to Colombia a little less painful. No, not painful. A little more carefree and to give you just a little bit more ease of mind and planning before you start your trip. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at SarahPerk1. I have a bunch of photos from Colombia you can check out of my favorite spots along the way. My first tip is my biggest tip. I wish I would have known this before I went because I was so worried. Do not try to plan all your hostels before you leave the United States. Please, please don't do it. So what I did is I didn't know if I needed to plan out my whole trip on Hostel World before I left the US because maybe places wouldn't be available, maybe I wouldn't know where I was going. Don't do that. What I would recommend you do is plan the first 2 or 3 nights of your travels in the city that you're landing in. I think your plans change a lot. You meet people, you figure out different cities you want to go to, you want to stay longer somewhere, shorter somewhere, and you want to be super flexible in your nights. So don't plan out your whole trip before. You will seriously regret it. That'll be awful. In addition to not planning out your hostels ahead of time, I am begging you not to buy your flights ahead of time that are domestic within Colombia. So it's super easy to get around Colombia with flights or buses. And as a solo traveler, you have so much flexibility. That's one of the best things about traveling solo. You don't want to tie yourself to a city either for too long or not enough time. Flights are super cheap, you know, anywhere from 20 to 60 US dollars to get around Colombia, and you don't have to buy them in advance. They don't go up like the month of as they would in the United States. So I would not book those in advance. Next tip. I know some people want to prepare so much before their trip. They want to do everything possible to make sure it goes smoothly. Along the lines of not buying your hostels before, please do not book any tours before. Any tour you can book on a US website is going to be super overpriced, at least triple the cost. It will be so easy to book at your hostel or through different hostels in Colombia or even just on the street. My next tip has to do with money. Now, before I got to Colombia, I was so confused about how I would get my money before I got into the country. Some people said wait for an ATM, some said get it from your bank. What I did is I took out about a couple hundred US dollars from my bank, and what I would recommend you do is just take out like 100 US dollars from your local bank. They'll charge you a lot for getting the money, so you don't want to get the majority of your money from your bank, and you don't want to be carrying around a bunch of cash because that can be dangerous and not that great in a hostel where your stuff isn't locked up. So what you do, just get a couple hundred US dollars or 100 US dollars from your bank. They'll ship it to you. You can use that to get a cab, get to your hostel, get some food. $100 will take you a long way, but in a day or two you'll be out of money, and there are so many ATMs all around the major cities. Just go to an ATM, withdraw the money. It's like a $4 fee. Don't pull out more than 100 US dollars before you leave. So my next tip has to do with selecting hostels, and I'm sure you all know what Hostel World is. It's the most popular site for selecting hostels all around the world. Sometimes it can be difficult to figure out what hostel to stay in. For example, in Medellin or Cartagena, there will be hundreds of hostels, and you're like, how will I choose what makes this one better than the next? Be super careful when selecting your hostels and look at the reviews. You want to select a hostel with, at least I want to, a social vibe so you can meet other travelers. And Ratings don't really help for this. The thing that helps is going into the Hostel World comments and looking at the reviews. Look at people's age that they made the reviews. If they're 40 and they love the hostel, that's probably not the best hostel for meeting other people. But if they're, 18 to 24, 24 to 28, in those age ranges on Hostel World, and they say it's a really social hostel, easy to meet people, that will be the hostel that you want to stay at. In addition to looking at the reviews on Hostel World, another amazing resource you can use for other hostels is your fellow travelers. When I would visit a hostel and be talking to other people, I would ask them where else they had traveled in Colombia and ask them where they stayed and how they liked it. After I did that, I would just make a note in my phone and write down like Medellin, Purple Monkey Hostel, really liked it. And then once I got to Medellin, I would have a list of a couple hostels that people had either recommended or not recommended, and that would help me make my decision way easier. Also, in terms of picking hostels, bigger is not necessarily better. I found that some of the best hostels I stayed at were, for a solo traveler, were smaller hostels because it was way easier to make friends than at bigger hostels. At bigger hostels, people are often traveling in groups. You don't really see them as much, but in smaller hostels, there's only a few common tables. You're all around each other, and it's almost inevitable that you'll make friends with almost everyone at your hostel. So definitely look for the smaller places as opposed to the big chain corporate places. And along the lines of hostels, I'm going to list a few of my favorite hostels for solo travelers in Colombia in the video description. Consider them. I really liked them, and some of them are based on recommendations from people I met. So maybe choose one of those for your jumping off point hostel at the beginning of your trip if you're flying into one of these cities. So my next tip also has to do with your magical cell phone, and that is get a prepaid SIM card when in Colombia. I use the brand called Claro, and here it is. You just have a SIM card that you have to have an unlocked iPhone, and you literally just pop open this little SIM card tray here and put in Claro's SIM card, and you're ready to make calls. Now, Claro has places all over, like literally every street corner in Colombia. If you see a Claro sign, you can just go into a little gas station or corner shop and get your SIM card, and you'll be off and making calls. So when you walk in the Claro shop, ask for 2 gigas para 20,000, and that will give you 2 gigabytes of data for around, let's see, $7 US. And this will be good for 14 days, and you'll be able to use WhatsApp, maps, look things up on the internet. It will make your life so much easier when you're walking around the city alone. So my next tip that has to do with being other travelers is use WhatsApp and Instagram to their full potential. So before I went to Colombia, I didn't even know what WhatsApp really was. In the United States, we don't use it too much, but WhatsApp is essential when you're traveling. And you'll see here, this is a different number, but you can add people from all around the world and chat with them for free on WhatsApp. It's like a texting app. And this is how most backpackers will communicate. Another great tool to use is Instagram. And a lot of backpackers will have Instagram, and that's easier for me because everyone uses it in the US. And I would add people on Instagram when I met them in the hostels, and then I could keep seeing their stories. So if we were in the same city later, I could be like, hey, no way, I'm also here, let's meet up. Or if I saw them doing something cool in another city, I could be like, oh, what is that? Like, could you give me the name of that hostel? Or how do you like this? How do you like that? And it was super useful for staying in touch with people and getting travel tips after I had met them in the hostel. Another great way I used Instagram on my trip as a solo traveler was by searching hashtags and locations. If you go to your Instagram search bar here, I've typed in Medellin. You can go to places and it will load you all of the photos in Medellin. Now I can do this for different hostels, Tirona. Okay, no, that's not a hostel. It will give me some ideas of what the place looks like. and I can look at other people traveling there. This is just good for checking out restaurants, hostels, and getting an idea of what they're like, not just on the amazing travel blogs you find online, but in real life. So I found that really cool for just kind of getting an idea of what I was getting into when I was going somewhere. And my next tip is one I actually didn't do before I went to Colombia, but I totally wish I would have. If you're going to Colombia solo, or really any country, just go to Facebook, go to the search bar, type in Backpacking Colombia or Backpacking whatever country, and join the Facebook group. Here in the Facebook group, you can find a bunch of information like hostels that might need volunteers, people's favorite places to go, and it will give you some kind of local recommendations from other travelers that you just wouldn't find online or on different travel blogs. So my next tip kind of goes without saying, but you should definitely brush up on your Spanish before you go to Colombia. So I wasn't really sure what level of Spanish people were going to expect to me, and I learned in a lot of the small towns like Salento or Minca, people don't really know English there, and you definitely want to know a few phrases like how to order in a restaurant, how to negotiate with your taxi driver. Just take, half an hour each day for 2 weeks before you leave. Look at Traveler's Spanish, and this will make your life so much easier. Next tip. One of the biggest questions everyone asks about Colombia is it safe? Your friends and family will probably be freaking out that you're going to Colombia. They think it's so dangerous. Can't be any further from the truth. I felt in almost every city so safe to walk around at night by myself, with the exception of Santa Marta and Bogota. There were some areas where you definitely didn't want to be alone at night, but in Cartagena and Medellin, I felt totally fine walking to and from my hostel and restaurants, even alone at night. The thing I would recommend for solo travelers for safety is, if possible, travel in groups with people from your hostel. So if you're going out to a bar at night, go with a group from your hostel. I'm sure you'll already be doing this, but when you leave, just make sure you're all leaving together, walk home together, get an Uber together. It's just safer that way. Another weird tip I have about safety is always keep maybe 200,000 Colombian pesos hidden on you, not directly in your wallet. If you are stopped and frisked by the police, which isn't super common but can happen in some of the gringo neighborhoods, they might charge you some random fine, just make up laws. And I found that having money on you can always help you get out of sticky situations. If you're by yourself and need to take a cab home, it's always good to have some extra money stashed on you. I know people are scared when they're traveling solo that they're going to be lonely. I was traveling for a month and didn't know if I would be bored or want to talk to people. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. You're very entertained. But one tip I have for making friends is do not be afraid to go up to people at your hostel. A great way to approach people is to have a little bit of food or wine or a little treat you got from another city. Be eating it and just go up to them and ask if they want to share with you. Food and alcohol are great ways to make friends at hostels. I am sure they will accept your offer, and you'll be chatting in no time and hopefully have a new friend at your hostel. When you're traveling solo, you don't have a big advantage I learned in my travels, which is the bargaining power of a group. When I was in Isla Grande and Santa Marta, you can have these really fun excursions like snorkeling, diving, boat rides, and you can talk them down so much on their price if you're with a group. So my advice is grab a few people from your hostel and see if you can collectively bargain down prices for different tours and excursions like this. Okay, this is one of my favorite tips for being a solo traveler in Colombia. You might think the only way to get around the country is by taxi or by Uber, and this is definitely a good option. But in many cities, like especially Cartagena, Santa Marta, they have motorbikes or motor taxis. And these are awesome for solo travelers because they can only fit one person on the back. You'll know you see one when you see a guy driving around with one helmet on his head and one in his arm. These are way cheaper than taxis because if you're just doing a taxi solo, you're obviously paying for the 3 empty seats. On motorbikes, you can really bargain with the guy, and it is way cheaper than taking a taxi and also super fun in my opinion. Maybe that went a little over 10 tips, but these are some things I really do wish I knew before I went to Colombia and would have made my life a whole lot easier as a solo traveler. I hope you enjoyed them, and let me know your favorite place you want to go in Colombia down in the comments, and or any questions you might have, and I will definitely answer them. So thanks for watching this video. If you made it to the end, please give me a like. I would super appreciate it, and happy traveling.